gonna roll. This is like a group topic. We're gonna have a couple of group topics today where we're not gonna like almost introduce most of the topics to really talk about as we would individually because these are really just discussion worthy topics. Okay. Um, and this one, I'm just gonna roll the footage and you guys can see what we're looking at here because this is, as Corey has corrected me, it's 39B. This is the water suppression system at the launch pad. Which is amazing.
Oh yeah.
So now,
So cool.
how many? Are we sure about how many gallons of water this is?
I have that. Let's see. So the sound suppression system on these pads, it's for the space shuttle, and basically, it says the water stored in 290-foot high, 300,000 gallon tanks northeast of the pad. Their flow rate, though, their peak flow rate is 900,000 gallons per minute.
Wow.
So, they can throw out some water.
And I mean, and so here's the thing. Obviously, when you're throwing a lot of heat out of solid rocket boosters, like in the shuttle days, and when you're actually using a rocket that is propelling very hot gases out the back of it, you want to keep your concrete and your superstructures cool enough to survive that type of thermal blasting. Number one, also the thermal shock. But number two, the other big purpose that these things have is for noise suppression. So water naturally acts as a baffle system to reduce some of the noise in basically these environments. And it's phenomenal when you see an actual shuttle launch or something else. That big pile of steam that comes up at the end is basically just that. It's the remnants of all that water burning off after they dump it into the system. But it kind of spurned another conversation between us, which is what basically would constitute a survivable distance at a launch, right? Because that much water is doing an awful lot of work to suppress noise levels. Right?
Yeah, quite a bit. Actually, on the there's another link we have down below the video link down there, but it's a link to the NASA's website that kind of shows exactly about the sound suppression system.
Right.
And you'll see in there it talks about the system designed for when the shuttle was launched there. It reduces the acoustic decibels down to 142 decibels, which is below the 145 decibel threshold for the payload compartment of the shuttle.
Wow.
The old shuttle, of course, it's not there anymore, but you know what I mean. So, and that literally brought us to the next thing, which we'll get to in a minute, of course, is decibels, and we'll talk about that in a second, of course. But 142 is still really loud, but it's enough to bring it down to where the actual energy in the sound itself, the acoustic sound, is low enough to not damage the payload.
So now the other part of it is that you did some number crunching before this, where you actually went out. And now here's the other thing: it's very hard to find information on this. We thought we'd find like a classic scientific document where you could read and some sort of guidelines. But then again, I guess so few people have access to full blown rocket launches that it really doesn't make a difference. Whoever decides how close you can or can't be to a rocket launch is decided by the launching authority. And I believe NASA is somewhere between 4 miles to 4.5 miles is the safe visitor distance, I think, is what they use at some levels. But Corey, you found some numbers on the actual decibels of what would do human interior damage and what would now internal damage. I think it was what, 210?
Actually, yeah. So some of the other stuff I found here was I actually just put it just a few minutes ago down below as well, in the link below. But it's actually not on a rocket related website, but the American Speech and Language Association. So it literally has to do with hearing, right? And it talks about dangerous or noise, safe or dangerous noise levels. And basically, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. But the top of their chart, it says painful impulse noise. So basically, impulse meaning noise that is of this decibel magnitude, but only for a short amount of time. And basically, it says the painful impulse noise not safe for any period of time. 150 decibels, 140 decibels. So, if you've ever been around people that are shooting firearms, and you will understand a few things. First off, they're loud, of course, but you'll understand also that it depends how your perception of how loud it is depends on kind of where you stand in relation to the firearm going off, of course.
Right.
And all this will go into play a bit when we talk a bit more about the launch itself and where you would maybe stand and not stand. But nevertheless, here it says 150 decibels for fireworks at 3 feet, shotguns, firecrackers, real close. and then 140 decibels for the average firearm. Because as we would look at all of these numbers and all of these things we talk about for rocket launches, we understand
Hmm.
not every launch is the same.
Right,
Not
right.
every weather state of the launch is the same.
The
The
amount
the
of
density of
fuel,
the air and the
thrust.
distance and where you stand
Yeah,
and
yeah.
how much mass the payload or how much mass is being lifted off. Thus, how much throttle up the engines, or they're solid fuel boosters, or are they liquid fuel? There's a whole bunch of
There's so many,
there's a
so
whole
many
bunch of stuff.
variables, right?
But this is all basic, so we just wanted to kind of give you guys an idea. So what you can see right here, the top of this level is 140, 150, not safe for any really period. And you just heard me reference the thing on NASA's website that the water suppression system for many of the shuttle launches only brought it down below 145, which
Oof.
was not even particularly for the passengers, but for the design requirement for the payload, because it's a little bit further down than the crew compartment.
So I have an interesting thing though.
It's loud, obviously.
That is really strange. Okay, so when I used to be out on the tarmac pre-flighting aircraft, right, at airports like Denver and Chicago, and then I'd have my Apple Watch on. My Apple Watch actually has a decibel meter built into it. Matter of fact, there's a video that we did on the Rolex where I actually pointed to it in one part of the video where I think I was registering over 109 to 114 decibels of cars passing by, and we were roughly, I don't know, 20 yards from the cars, maybe, if that,
50
maybe,
feet, 40 feet,
something, yeah, right,
maybe less.
maybe
yeah.
less than that. And it's interesting to me that with this particular stuff, so if you're saying now, I think one of the other things that you found that said the shuttle was 215 decibels and the Saturn V was 220 decibels, right?
Yeah, I've lost that link, but yeah, I was talking to Mike about that just before the show, and yeah, I think it was 215 decibels was about the sound of the launch of the space shuttle, stacked, of course, the full stack.
Right.
But then, yeah, the Atlas V back when Apollo was going up, that was 220, I think it said.
So the water suppression system, to me, then it seems like, if I'm going to do my math right correctly here, so let me just dot some numbers down, because if they get it to 145, right? So they get it to 145 about. So when they say that it was, so they're saying that roughly it reduces the decibel levels by 65 decibels, basically, on the actual initial thrust of the rocket per shuttle launch, right? Yeah. So now here's the other thing that's really interesting. What people don't also understand is that's only for the initial firing of the engines. Once this rocket gets a quarter of a mile to 3/4 of a mile to a mile in the atmosphere, it's full decibels. It's you don't get any more noise suppression anymore. That's why you get the initial one is about 220, but then you're at full decibels for a rocket launch, which is why you can still hear these things solidly 15 miles away, like loudly on most days. So
yeah, obviously, as Mike's getting, yeah, they're taking off and they're no longer near where the suppression is. But also, we talked about where you are standing. In this case, obviously, with the firearms. But if you're related to rockets, we're stationary and the rocket's moving. But as the rocket climbs away from Earth, obviously we're getting in a way further behind, depending where the rocket's going, in its trajectory. But you're in a way moving to the behind the rocket, where when you started you were just to the side of it quite far, but still. So yeah, as they climb, depending on a lot of things still again, but yeah, you can hear them because it's not being baffled at all by anything
at all.
System.
No, the atmosphere is
surface, because it can be, yeah.
And then it's really funny because you might get some launches that are quite loud because the way that the wind blows the sound, and you might get some launches that are almost silent because all the sound goes back out of the ocean. However, when you do go to the Space Center and you do go on the tour, they do go into the fact that anything that's generally within a mile of the launch site, its life is actually in jeopardy due to the decibel noises that actually are emitted from an initial pulse from a rocket. And number one, and number two, the reason why that area is all sanctuary for birds and creatures and whatnot is because some of them might actually be deaf, because from what I understand is they set off some sort of pre-launch sonic pulses. My understanding, and this is what I've been told by individuals that work out there, and it could be false, I don't know, I have no way to confirm this. However, my understanding is that they've set off some sort of decibel pulses from the launch pad hours, if not days, before the launch to try to force all the creatures out of that zone that could possibly be injured at a time of launch. I don't know if that's true or not, but I hope they do, because there's a lot of force coming out of that thing.
Yeah, and kind of going right along with that too. Again, I've lost the link too, but I think what I was reading before was somewhere around 210 decibels if your body is to withstand that amount of acoustic energy,
Hmm.
um, it's physically hitting you. You're gonna feel it, but apparently, your organs, which are softer tissue, your internal organs, will begin to rupture,
Ooh.
and you'll begin to bleed internally. You'll be If you had no hearing protection, you'd be already deaf by then. But the point is that there's a whole bunch of things that can go wrong if you're close to the launch, right? Obviously there's a lot of heat,
Sure.
notwithstanding if it's a failed launch, unfortunately, that would be obviously really bad. But then just the straight heat, and then of course the acoustic energy, just to name a few things, the closer you would get. So I mean, there's a whole bunch of people kind of brainstorming on the internet, how close could you get, put those
On
volcanic
Reddit.
suits on that really shield you from heat,
Right.
and walk up close. But then of course, you're getting hit with all the sound, and you just liquefy anyway. So um
You say that
it's
so
it is
casually.
interesting.
You would just liquefy, so
Well,
hey.
yeah, your internal organs. But
Of course.
it is kind of cool. The wife and myself, we did get lucky enough to go on one of the last tours to Launchpad 39A
Hmm.
before SpaceX rebuilt the thing. And we got to go into the flame trench, and that's, again, if you've seen shuttle launches, the rocket's standing on a stand, but it's elevated above ground level, and it's on this launch stand, and below it is this. Well, you just saw it in the water deluge system.
Right.
But below that is an angled trench that kind of angles the blast out and away. And we were lucky enough to go in there and look around, and it's pretty cool, man. I mean, you just standing there, the amount of energy must have been going through this trench. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah.
That's the only thing I ever got to do was before they took down that launch pad, I actually took the bus tour. And the bus tour gets you to the point where you can step out, but you don't actually go into the garage, the
Yeah.
metal structure or anything, and you didn't go into the flame trench, but you got close enough to see it in real life, and you realize that flame trench is big. It's not.
It is big.
It's really
very
big.
tall.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's a lot more massive, and try to to acoustically push all that sound in one direction, because my understanding is it also did that very, very well. And you would see that additional thrust immediately after the thrusters went off on the shuttle, and any launch at that matter, how it would automatically deflect and go out to the side rather than other directions. So
Yeah, I'll see. I know I have those pictures. I'll see if they have anything in there that we wouldn't want to show.
okay, well we'll
And,
revisit.
Yeah, exactly.
can
It's
revisit
cool.
it.
Yeah, there's cool
Hey,
pictures.
folks, and remember, if you get a chance, like, subscribe, and follow. This is just, again, today we were really just in a discussion, because when I saw that video and I saw the amount of water, and I was just absolutely blown away. And I said, man, why haven't I not seen this before? And I thought it was just amazing. And then we were both sitting here puzzled, going, how close can you actually be? And
Yeah, we knew about it, but yeah, so like, how close can you really be?
yes,
Like,
from what I understand, nobody's ever been closer than 3 miles. That's my understanding. 3 miles. Now, if you've been closer, good luck, because they say you probably, and then as Corey mentioned, if something went wrong, you probably wouldn't be standing there anymore.
yeah, if it lifts off, any amount below 1,000 feet and it goes boom, well,
You're done.
yeah, you'll be burned by heat. I mean, and there's other things too that we didn't mention even yet. There's a lot of toxic chemicals on board,
Mhm.
Depending if it's what type of propellant it is. Yeah, there's a lot of things that can go wrong for a bystander.
And there was one more article I think we linked in there that we didn't really touch in, but it was also from Popular Science, and it's how the noise of big rockets break apart buildings, and that's also worthy of a read if you're really interested into it. That one I have not read yet, so I don't know everything that's contained in it, so I'm not going to speak as to what could or couldn't be in there, but it's some of the things that we've just found in discussion before we went on live. So, hey, if you get a chance, check out the links below, and let us know what you think in the comments below. If you have any prior information to something like this, or if you have a good physics equation to back up everything that we just said, or if you have a paper, that would be even better. Leave it in the comments below. We'd love to hear more about the subject. It'd be, I think, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I'll have to find those pictures and get back to you guys.
Hey,
I know I
no
got
problem.
them somewhere.
All right, so the next one that we're really going to be talking about here